I'm now excited to introduce to you our next speaker, Mr. Douglas Mawadri. Douglas Mawadri is a powerful human rights activist in the LGBTQ movement in Uganda. He is the lawyer who led one of the most powerful cases against the US role in creating homophobia in Uganda. He is the regional director of Fire That Fuels. You've now seen the domestic worker US-based program. You're going to see now Douglas's work as a Fire That Fuels leader, leading human rights LGBTQ activists in Uganda. Douglas is going to share on grief and regeneration in the human rights movement. Thank you so much, Douglas. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Ariana, for introducing us, and thank you so much for all the panelists and the participants under this program. As Ariana said, my name is Douglas Mawadri. I am the Executive Director of Associate for Health Rights Uganda, and I am also the coordinator of Fire That Fuels, the Uganda chapter. Over this last couple of months, we have been running a program on regenerational circles with the participants, and we have partly had a very good experience in people sharing their grief and also people trying to create resilience from the inexcesses that existed in the law, in the COVID, but also partly during the elections where there was internet shutdown and there were so many violences that occurred to the LGBT and sex workers community in Uganda. So we have been running this program, and for that matter, we equally share our grief with the people, and we also share so much difficult moments, and we thought that we should share our work with all of you. So we thank all of you for being participating in this, but also for taking time to listen to our plight, working with the LGBT and working with the sex workers, but also partly working on the working largely on human rights activities in Uganda. Arena, the slides, please. Yeah, so we are asking, why is healing important for human rights defenders? So the human rights defenders in Uganda largely do so much work which involves people being exposed to traumatic experiences, the loss of our own activists within our movements, the arrest and the laws that are quite negative towards LGBT persons, but also towards human rights defenders who are supporting LGBT persons in Uganda. And Uganda is, of course, as a country that still has its repressive laws that target LGBT persons, but also it goes ahead to target human rights defenders because of the work they do. The work that human rights defenders do mostly, where depending on the target group that you're working for, it's being seen as as you're supporting a particular illegality. You're supporting persons who are actually contravening the provisions of the law, and so it becomes an issue for one not to align yourselves with. But the fact that you're a human rights defender, you associate yourselves with all these difficult moments and difficult persons, and people always also come to you with their problems, and then to find solutions for their own problems. So as you go through, you listen to people's problems, and you identify people's you find solutions for people's problems. It becomes a challenge even for you, that you grieve with them, and also as you grieve with them, you also take in all the burdens that people have. So people come and load their burdens onto you, so you equally become so burdened that you become a target to which you actually become, at times you suffer from depression, insomnia, stress, that are resulting from your own work and your own experiences of working with the human rights defenders. But also there is a desire to create a wider movement that creates cohesion, that creates trust, that creates resilience, and that's why we thought it important that the grief program would be able to help us explore the better methods on how we can deal with the challenges that human rights defenders go through. Next. The forms, what forms of grief do we experience in the human rights movement in Uganda? There's so much types of grief that are experienced by human rights defenders in Uganda. Notably, a few of it is that there are loss of activists in Uganda. For example, there was a loss of David Kato, one of the prominent LGBT activists who was murdered in cold blood in his own home in 2011. But also quite recently, there was the murder of Brian. Brian was an activist in Ginger, but he was murdered in cold blood just because of the work he does. But there are so many other human rights defenders who also lose their lives just because of the work they do and because of who they identify as LGBT persons. But also there are so much issues to do with like loss of connection with family members, because there is so much rejection, there's so much banishment that results from individuals because of their association with a particular groups of people. You know, whether you're an LGBT human rights defender, or whether you're a sex worker, or whether you're a human rights defender who defends the rights of LGBT persons or minorities in Uganda, you are considered as an immoral person within the family setup. So you tend to lose that family kind of a setting, family background, a family belonging that you ideally have to belong to. But also people lose their homes and people flee to exiles, people are rejected, or people are evicted from their places of residence. So because of this, human rights defenders go through so much difficult moments as they undertake their human rights defense work. But also there are loss of property, where people lose properties because of their association, because of their identity, because of who the kind of work they do. So property are lost just resulting from the fact that the people are assumed that the properties they own are not properties they ought not to own because of who they are. So these are things that human rights defenders do experience. And for that matter, grief is not just from people who lose, but also whom we lose, but also because of the things that all the experiences that we go through. So all these things get into human rights defenders, and for that matter, it gets into the minds and the souls of people, that it affects all of us in respect to what we do. Next. So this grief has several the grief and the trauma and the stress and the depression has so much types of impacts that human rights defenders do face. So as we go through documenting our work, as we go through assisting individuals, as we go through finding measures on how to mitigate all these human rights violations, as we go through to talk to individuals and find solutions for their own problems, people go through so many challenges. But some of the effects that we go through are their social isolations. Social isolations comes as a result of people who try to isolate themselves because the families are against them, but also families isolate them. So it's a double sword kind of a thing, where you isolate yourself because you don't want people to associate you with a particular group of people, but also the people isolate you because you've identified as an LGBT human rights defender or as an LGBT person. So this is some of the difficult moments we go through. There are so much burnout in the communities because of the kind of work that we do. You know, you have several things and things that you definitely have to respond to. So because of some of these challenges here, you are so much overwhelmed and burdened with so much work that you have to undertake. There are also things that, like for example, post-traumatic stress disorders, insomnia, that people go through because of the work they do through. So the whole day people are documenting cases, the whole day people are working towards finding a particular solutions to individuals, but also a particular remedies that could be able to be adopted by so many other things and whatnot. And this kind of work follows you up to your own space, up to your own private space, your bedrooms, your private space and whatnot. So for that matter, the grief, the impact of trauma and all these things follow you into your private spaces. So these are the challenges that the human rights defenders do face as they go through their work. And for us, this is some of the things that we actually face on a daily basis, because people come to us with so many solutions. There are also family ties that you lose because of the fact that you identify as a human rights defender, but also you identify as a person who people look up to give support Yeah, so the Fire That Fuels, so the Fire That Fuels Uganda is basically a program that we created towards ensuring that LGBT activists do connect, do provide, they do connect, they do find solutions for their own problems to address the issues of stress, the trauma, and they develop regenerative forms of activism that can be able to be adopted, and they create resilience from within their own networks and their own movements. For this, it's basically a method that we can use to address some of the difficult moments that people go through as they continue doing human rights work. So it's basically a tool that we adopted in Uganda to undertake and to mitigate some of the measures that we go through in respect to doing the work that we do. Next, Arena. So while we're undertaking the regeneration circles, communities do come together to find healing spaces or to find regeneration practices within small groups, within their own individuals who understand them, who trust them, and whom they can relate with in respect to all their undertakings. So the participants come together to create a peer support and a very collective healing tool, which allows them to basically open up to vocal their traumatic experiences through written words, through storytellings, and through sharing their own ordeal, so that they tend to collectively find solutions together with all these challenges. Over the last few months, we created 19 activists in Uganda that were trained with the regenerative practices, basically regenerators with regenerative practices and resilience practices. And also there were other 26 regenerational circles sessions that were led by fellow activists. So these are mechanisms that we created as a peer-to-peer lead mechanisms to be able to address some of the mitigation, to mitigate the respective human rights violations that we have documented over the years. Next. So the transitional solidarity and exchange is that, very briefly, we are trying to like reach far and wide with our programs to be able to say and to tell our stories on how we do mitigate some of these things, some of the human rights violations. In the last year, we undertook a regional program, the East African program, to train our human rights defenders across the region with our tool of peer-to-peer regeneration practices. And also quite recently we had I participated in a training methodology with under the peer-to-peer approach, to be able to reach out to some of the human rights activists in Haiti with the tool, and we thought it important that this tool can be sold, not necessarily sold, but that can be showcased across the globe. But also we're building a network of activists to address grief and trauma across our networks, to be able to see how we can mitigate some of these violences and share experiences. Next. One of the practices in regenerational circles is that we basically write letters, and we try to reach out to basically create a little bit of solidarity and cohesion within our own movement. So one of the examples could mean, just if I talk about the letter, is as an example, say, "Dear Douglas, it wasn't that I didn't love you. It was that I didn't know how to fully love, how to fully love me. I never wanted you to live and carry you in the heart every day. Love, Mom." So this is basically a letter that possibly your mom sends you to give you strength and solidarity to be able to continue your work. One of the such example could mean a letter to say, "Even though I was killed, dear Douglas, even though I was killed, you do not have to feel guilty, and that you survived. You do not have a flight to fight harder every day. You do not have to fight harder every day. Sometimes you must enjoy rest too. The rest and the rest and regeneration is, after all, what we are fighting for." So this is basically to say that you are doing so much work, and for that matter, you need to basically also take some time off to relax and to just just grieve and overcome some of these burdens here, because there's so much that you do undertake on your daily basis, and that there are solutions that you might also need to find for your own self to be able to be resilient to carry the next day. So letter writing is basically one of the methodologies that we try to reach out to our family members, but also our networks, to be able to articulate the issues. So yeah, I would implore, if the as one of the I noticed that this was really a very powerful tool, and for that matter, if the participants can just maybe in the chat write a letter to each other and see the impact of this letter. Just write anything random to anyone whom you think that you associate with such a person, to see how the power of the letter towards this individual, and how it can also create a little bit of resilience towards understanding their grief. Thank you so much. So this is an exercise that we may possibly have to undertake, and just to feel how powerful it is, just to write a letter and say how powerful you are, and how we stand with you in whatever space you are, just to make sure that you keep doing your work, and you do matter. But also it's a reminder that you're very powerful, and the rest of the individuals are with you. So it makes you feel the passion that you're powerful, that it gives you the resilience that you can be able to wake up the next day and continue the kind of this work. But also it's a reminder to you that you're also human, that the moments when you can go through all these things to see you through, that you might have to overcome. So yeah, that a letter can actually also suffice to
Thank you
articulate.
so much, Douglas. I want to share some of the letters that people are writing in the chat. Dearest human, I see you in your perfection, your imperfections. You are whole and resourceful. You matter. I see you in your fullest potential. Believe that you are enough. Love, Shannon. From Beth, may the grief in our hearts open all of us to being present more for those around us and to love more deeply. From Melissa, today you are seen, valued, and appreciated. Today may be hard, but every day won't be. From Janine, dear Douglas, thank you so much for the letter writing. This is healing for me. I am grateful. From Greta, you are not alone in your grief. You are loved and cared for. Thank you for all the working you are doing and your resiliency. So many blessings. Dear you, I know you have been trying to do your best at times, biting more than you can chew, but you are doing the best every day, and you deserve to breathe and smile more often than be hard on yourself. Thank you. Everything worth doing is worth doing poorly. It is better to do part of the work of grief than not do it at all. Never underestimate the difference you make and the inspiration you are. This is our time. Thank you for the beautiful letters. Thank you for your beautiful words. This is a powerful practice, and may you all carry it with you and hear the words that you need to from your loved ones and those you've lost in the moments you need them the most. And please check out Fire That Fuels to support both the work of Douglas and the nannies. I now want to turn it over to my partner, Xing. Xing was formerly an engineer and now works as an art designer, a production manager, doing incredible large-scale art installations. She is a powerful, powerful member of the Resilience Collective. Thank you so much, Xing.